Hey, I'm Gareth from Park Cameras, and today we're talking about shooting landscape photography with a longer lens, specifically an 85mm or above. So this was another creative shoot idea that I wanted to try out. The last one was shooting portraits with a wide-angle lens. So on those ones it was a 24mm lens, but shooting portraits. Here I went out on this shoot with two lenses, so a Sigma 85mm f1.4 art lens and the Canon 70-200 f2.8 L lens, both really lovely lenses. So it's very easy to think of landscape photography in terms of shooting with wide-angle lenses. So often you'll be trying to capture those wide, stunning vistas and get the whole thing in, so you want to go as wide as possible. So you want to get a bit of sky in there, you want to get the whole thing in, so you shoot with something like a 35mm, 24mm, or even wider. And I know I've certainly done that before, thinking of landscape, thinking of wide-angle lenses. But there's actually all kinds of different things you can do, and certainly using a longer lens, using a telephoto lens, can give you some really interesting different perspectives on landscape photography. So obviously wide-angle lenses are great for capturing those nice wide expansive landscapes, but what they tend to do is give the foreground a more dominant part in the picture, which is great if that's what you want, if that's what you need, but they tend to do that, and then the things in the background, so whether that be mountains or cliffs or trees or anything like that, tend to be a little bit smaller because that's just how wide-angle lenses work. Whereas if you use a telephoto lens, if you use a long lens, so 85mm plus, then you're actually going to get kind of the opposite. You can cut out that foreground if it's not very interesting, and you can kind of compress the distances between things. So for example, the mountains in the background, the lighthouse that's in the back of the landscape, the river, things like that, it's all going to seem closer together. It's all going to get pushed closer together, and it's all going to seem very big. It's going to be enlarged within the context of the photo. So for example, this shot was taken in London. I was in St James's Park, and I was able to use a longer lens to get everything I wanted in there. So for example, the foreground here would have been fairly boring. It's not very interesting. It was just water, which is fine. If I was going to do something like long exposure or something like that, make it interesting, but it wasn't that interesting. So I used a longer lens to just cut that out, and then I was able to get what I wanted, which was the water feature, the fountain, the trees, and then in the background you've got the London Eye looking huge because it's been pulled together. You've got the flag, you can see the Shard in the background, so it's all kind of pulled together, and it makes for a great photo that I was able to get because I was using a longer lens. This photo is similar. I was using an 85mm lens for this one so I could get the night lights of the city, but I really just wanted to fill the frame with as much of that as I could, and then obviously have the night sky above. Now I tried it with a 35mm lens as well, just to see what it would look like, but what I ended up having was a lot of darkness to the right and the left, and a lot of foreground, which was just dark grass from the hill we were sitting on. Whereas with the longer lens, I was able to just get that night light kind of city look at the bottom and then the night sky above, which I really liked. That's all I wanted from the photo. So I was able to kind of, I guess, frame it more tightly on what I actually wanted in the photo. And that's something that you can do with telephoto lenses when it comes to landscape, is isolate a specific thing in the landscape and just focus in on that. So rather than having the wide, vast whole landscape in there, you can isolate on one thing, and that can create some really interesting stories, some really interesting looks to things. You can get some quite abstract and minimalistic looking things, but it can really enhance your photography. So obviously the best case scenario would be to bring both a wider angle lens and a longer, more telephoto lens to try and get both things. And then you can try out both things when you're on location shooting your landscape. Then you can get the wider shot, and then you can hone in on specific parts of it. And it really does, you'll notice, compress those distances, make everything look bigger, which is nice, and just to give you a nicer look with a different perspective. So obviously there's no right or wrong there, but it's definitely something that's worth trying out, definitely something that's worth packing next time you're going to go landscape shooting. Pop in a longer lens and just see what happens, see what you can get, and just change up your perspective on how you're shooting your landscape shots, and give it a try. Now, I hope you found that interesting. I'd love to hear about any instances where you've been shooting telephoto landscapes before, so if you pop any of that down in the comments, I'd love to hear about that. Any questions, pop them down there as well. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you liked the video, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe if you're not already. I'll see you in the next video, and as always, thanks for watching.